Celtic just fought back from 2-0 down at Ibrox to salvage a draw, but the drama doesn't stop there. We've got Rangers players making excuses, fan fury aimed at Daizen Maeda after a shocking performance, and Chris Sutton paying tribute to Martin O'Neill's incredible energy. Plus, the bizarre case of Kelechi Iheanacho continues to raise eyebrows. But first, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel for more Celtic content. Rangers defender John Souttar was absolutely fuming after Sunday's 2-2 draw at Ibrox, and his post-match interview absolutely reeked of sour grapes. With James Tavernier starting on the bench, Souttar wore the captain's armband for the derby and was left to explain how his side had surrendered a 2-goal lead as Celtic roared back in the second half. His reaction felt like classic frustration from a defender who knew momentum had completely swung away from Rangers. Souttar claimed Rangers had let Celtic into the game, accusing his side of giving them too much time on the ball, too much respect, too much space in between the lines. He went further, dismissing Celtic's comeback by labelling both goals as scruffy, adding that it was a really tough one to take. But that assessment doesn't stand up to much scrutiny at all. Celtic's first goal was anything but scrappy. The move was really well constructed, with Reo Hatate splitting the Rangers' midfield and defence with a disguised forward pass that took 3 players out of the game in one touch. Benjamin Nygren then delivered a perfectly weighted cross into the danger area, where Kieran Tierney produced a superb header. It was a goal built on movement, technique and timing, the complete opposite of scruffy. The equaliser was hardly a mess either. While it came from a rebound after a penalty was saved, that moment only arrived because Celtic were applying sustained pressure, forcing Rangers deeper and deeper. On another day, Celtic could easily have gone on to score a third or even a fourth, such was their dominance after the break. Souttar's comments reflected a player struggling to process how quickly the game slipped away. Rangers had been in control early, but once Celtic adjusted at half-time, they dictated tempo, territory and chances. Calling the goals scruffy felt less like analysis and more like frustration boiling over. In truth, Rangers didn't lose control because of bad luck or messy moments. They lost it because Celtic raised their level and exposed spaces that simply shouldn't have been there in a derby of that magnitude. Now for the main story, as Celtic fans are absolutely fuming with Daizen Maeda, and many are now calling for him to leave the club after a shocking display against Rangers. Youssef Chermiti's first half double punished a terrible opening 45 minutes from Martin O'Neill's side, who failed to have a single shot on target. O'Neill made 2 changes at the interval, and the Hoops netted through a Kieran Tierney header and a Reo Hatate penalty, but they couldn't force a late winner, meaning they dropped 2 more crucial points in the Scottish Premiership title race. Celtic remain 8 points behind league leaders Hearts and 2 points behind rivals Rangers, who are second in the table. Celtic fans would have been expecting a big performance from their key players as they chase down Hearts in a bid to retain their Scottish Premiership title. However, Rangers dominated proceedings in the first half, and Maeda's poor display was a main talking point among the Celtic support. Maeda expressed his desire to leave the club last summer, but the 28-year-old remained in Glasgow and has scored just 7 goals in 25 league appearances this season. The Japan international has now not found the back of the net in his last 7 league appearances, with little service to end that run at Ibrox. One supporter called for Maeda to train with the B team for the rest of the season, whilst one fan believes Celtic would be better playing with 10 men. The social media reaction was brutal. One fan said Maeda was having another shocker. Another said Daizen Maeda was a great player for Celtic, but now he's just a stroppy, uninterested waste of a jersey. Others called him out for not being fit to wear the jersey. One supporter said Maeda should never wear the jersey again after that performance, calling it hugely embarrassing. Another said, "Maeda, get the hell out of here, you're nothing but trash blocking Celtic's way." One fan suggested sending Maeda to train with the B team for the rest of the season, asking why should we be bothered about his World Cup ambitions when he can't even be bothered putting in effort on the pitch. Another said, Daizen Maeda is the prime example of when a player wants to leave, you need to sell them. They called it the worst individual performance of any Celtic player they've seen at Ibrox for years. Pathetic. In other news, Rangers boss Danny Röhl has been accused of playing straight into Martin O'Neill's hands in the build-up to Sunday's Glasgow derby, after reacting publicly to comments from the Celtic camp. The flashpoint came after Celtic midfielder Luke McCowan suggested that when Celtic are performing at their best, no team in the league touches them. Röhl responded by highlighting Rangers' league position despite Celtic's game in hand, framing the comment as misplaced confidence. The Rangers manager then went further, questioning Celtic's approach in their midweek Europa League win over Stuttgart and suggesting that O'Neill had settled for a 1-0 victory. He also raised the issue of Celtic's goalkeeper selection, saying it would be interesting to see whether O'Neill would revert to Kasper Schmeichel. Those remarks drew a sharp response from the Celtic manager, who bristled at the suggestion that his team selection or tactics were open for external commentary. O'Neill made it clear he found the interference extraordinary, sarcastically noting that Roll appeared to be picking our team for him. On the criticism of Celtic's Stuttgart performance, O'Neill rejected the idea that his side lacked ambition, stressing that Celtic had been forced back by a very strong Bundesliga opponent rather than choosing to sit on the result. Ultimately, events on the pitch undermined Roll's pre-match positioning. Celtic dominated large spells of the second half at Ibrox, with Rangers struggling to cope once O'Neill's side found control and intensity. Journalist Stephen McGowan believes Roll's reaction was unnecessary and counterproductive. He said on the Press Box podcast that he thought Danny Roll was daft because Luke McCowan had said something fairly innocuous. He said if Celtic are at it, no one can touch them. That was perceived as arrogance, but McGowan didn't think it was controversial at all. The problem is Celtic haven't been at it for a long time, so it set them up for a fall, and at half-time that looked like it was happening. Roll was probably relieved they only got a draw in the end, but reacting the way he did was silly. In other news, if you had told Celtic supporters back in August that Martin O'Neill would return to the dugout twice in the same season and spend his 74th birthday sprinting across the Ibrox pitch to break up a scrap after a 2-2 draw, you'd probably be laughed at. And yet, that's exactly where this extraordinary campaign has landed. O'Neill didn't hesitate when tempers flared at full time. He ran from one side of the pitch to the other, physically pulling players away and restoring order himself. Watching on from the commentary box was former striker Chris Sutton, who later took to social media to pay tribute to his old manager. Sutton wrote on X, "Got to say if I get to 74 and have 1/10 of the energy Martin O'Neill has, I'll be made up. So much to admire about him. It'll be tough to win the league from here, but without him, Celtic's race would already be run." Lastly, Kelechi Iheanacho is becoming an increasingly strange case at Celtic. The striker made a brief appearance from the bench on Thursday night in the Europa League tie against VfB Stuttgart, yet was then left out of the squad entirely for Sunday's trip to Ibrox. His last Scottish Premiership outing came on February 1st against Falkirk, when he played just 6 minutes. Since then, he hasn't featured in a league squad at all. What raised further eyebrows was his whereabouts on Sunday. While his teammates were locked in a derby battle at Ibrox, Kelechi Iheanacho was back in Manchester, training individually. He was working with UEFA-licensed coach Seedorf Gdua, the same coach he trained with earlier in the season while building fitness after signing for Celtic. That's what makes the situation puzzling. It seems unusual for a player to travel to England, even briefly, to train on his own, especially during a weekend when the squad is in action in a crucial league fixture. Whether this is purely a fitness management decision, a personal program agreed with the club, or something more telling about his standing under Martin O'Neill remains unclear, but it is undeniably a curious setup and one that raises questions about where Iheanacho really fits into Celtic's plans right now. That's all the latest Celtic news for today. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment below with your thoughts. I'll see you in the next one. Hail, hail.